drone up for a minute and have a look at the backdrop. Finally, shall we? I'll hit record right away. Here we go. Got the obstacle avoidance turned off. I probably should turn it on so I can't really fly sideways. I like to fly sideways for a bit. If I fly sideways into trees, it's game over. I've done that before. Still a little nerve-wracking to do it. Now, let's get some height. See just how big this island of timber is. It's a little swamp back in there. That's where most of those bears come from. We'll do a quick little 360. Alright. There's us in the top left corner. Now, still gotta get some height. I gotta get above these trees so I don't hit any. That would really suck. They come above them. Now let's go have a look. Is that a bear down there? Shadow. So it's a big slough. Man, it goes way back farther than I thought. Look at it winding through there on the left. There's the confluence where it comes into the other river. But I want to look down into this island of timber behind me right now. So let's have a look down on there. Sorry, make sure I'm high enough one more time. Yeah, I guess I'm high enough. Alright, here we go. I'll go a little higher. Pretty thick patch of timber down there. Real thick. I think we're going to see too much down in there. So, I'll have to go in there on foot. I'll go in there on foot and videotape that island of timber one day. So, oh, there's a big hidden swamp right here. Look at that. Well, that is a big chunk of swamp. Lots of swamp. If this is up north, there'd be moose all over the place in there. There's all those big bears. Now, where am I? Okay, I know where I am. Oh wow, there's no beach left. Right down below there is where I've been fishing. The beach is now covered in water. And the mouth of the river in the center of the screen top on the right is the confluence for the river behind me coming into the Sumas River on the left. Wow. Alright, there we go. Now let's have a look back behind us. That is where I flew the drone up along the river. The stamped Sumas River system. And all this timber right here. Everywhere right here. It's where there's more than just deer and bear running around. Weak transmission signal, getting a little too far. Alright, I better start heading this back. So, this is all the timber behind me right here, right? It's a lot of it. A lot of area below. It's all going to have to be explored by foot, I guess. How interesting is that? Now that's the swamp behind me, right? So, right there, let's go to the left. Right there, that's that view. It's right behind me, right? Now, I'm curious about this swamp a little more. So, let's angle the camera up, see how long that slough is. And I want to go fly that a little bit, just for me. So have a look in the swamp. I think everybody else does too. So here we go, let's have a peek. Only imagine if I put trail cameras in this slough, the amount of bears that would be on the camera would be absolutely ridiculous. So thick. It'd be interesting to film this later on in the winter when the leaves are gone. So, there we go. So, all of this is that island of timber behind me. A lot of people on here watching seem to see things in behind me that I don't really notice myself. All that timber right there. There we go. We did it. We did the tour. Now there I am. Right there. There we go. All right, there we go. We know what's back there now, right? Sort of. In a way, we know what it's like back in behind me. Now, who do we got? Where is this? All right, here's an email I received, and it actually knee-jerked me into doing the drone thing yesterday. Now this is, do you remember the dude, man, sorry, the man, the kind person, member of the group here, emailed the other day about a sighting just up the road from the house. He saw it while driving cab, all right, and so did his drunk passenger. And I asked him to send back whatever he's got from his grandmother, and he did. Now listen to this. This is titled Follow Up from the 2006 Port Alberni Bigfoot sighting. Hello Steve, my name's Lauren Phillips. You can share my name and story if you choose to. I hope you're feeling better from your recent ailment in your face. I'm getting there, man, thanks. Thank you for sharing my story of the sighting I had back in 2006. You mentioned you wanted to hear a few stories from what my mother and grandmother had on their farms back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I wanted to get the times in chronological order, so I had to contact my mother, who was 90 years old. And over a few days of her trying to remember the dates and locations of these events, and what I remember my mother and grandmother telling me when I was growing up, I think I have things in order now. Mind you, some of these stories are vague. Names were left out as I didn't have permission to use them, or they were unknown after so many years. These events took place here in Port Alberni, BC. Anyways, I'll get on with the story. My mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother moved to a farm my grandmother purchased on Best Road near Elstow Road, E-L-S-T-O-W Road, in 1942-48. Shortly after moving there, my great-grandmother said she saw two very tall men covered in hair walking across the property during the day and disappeared into the forest. Now, I don't think she could tell if they were males because of the distance she was from them, as it was probably a figure of speech to identify whatever it was. Not too long after that, one of the neighbors next to my grandmother's property had a dog and some pups that ran off after deer that went into the thick forest across the road from all the properties. This thick forest is still there today. After the neighbor went into that thick forest to retrieve the pups and the adult dog, he approached the mother, who was about 10 at the time, he approached my mother, who was about 10 at the time, and with a frightened look on his face said to her sternly, "Please promise me you will never go into that forest alone or play in there with your friends. You do not want to see what I saw in there. If you leave it alone, it will leave you alone." He never did say what he saw. Another incident that happened on that property was one day my grandmother was washing chicken eggs in the sink when she happened to look up and see out of the window a very broad-shouldered, bipedal creature covered in black hair staring at her at about 10 feet away. My grandmother let out a scream. The creature let out some kind of a scream/laughter. When my grandmother had turned away for a moment and looked back towards it, the creature was gone. Sorry I didn't get a height of the creature. I don't recall her ever saying how tall it was. Another time on that same property, my mother and grandmother were heading off to the barn to milk their cows. It was dark out, and all they had were their oil lanterns to see. My mother said she had an uneasy feeling like she was being watched, and could tell my grandmother did as well, but wasn't letting on. Their dog Jip was alert and may have barked a couple times towards the barn area. My grandmother told him to be quiet. They just wanted to get the milking done and get back to the house. No sooner than, when my mother pushed the barn door shut, something on the other side of the door grabbed onto it and started shaking the barn door. My mother called out to my grandmother for help, and she came running to help keep the door shut from whatever was on the other side. My mother recalls this creature making a high-pitched laughter, along with growling while it was shaking the door. They were trying to latch the door shut, but still had a small space to go before they could. The dog's going nuts, wants to get at whatever was out there. So, my grandmother lets the dog through the small gap, big enough to let a medium-sized dog through. She commanded the dog, Jip, to get him or whatever it was. The thing let go of the barn door, and I guess it was more preoccupied with defending itself against the dog. Just then they were able to shut and latch the door. They could hear the dog barking, growling, and nipping at whatever it was out there, and could hear the thing screeching, chattering, and making a racket at the dog. After a few minutes, the creature must have ran off into the trees. My grandmother and mother called for Jip, their dog. He came running back and must have got into the barn through another smaller opening he had known about. My mother says the dog was not injured, which makes me wonder if it was a Sasquatch. If it was a Sasquatch, it must have been a young one. That wasn't very experienced. As we hear stories of dogs running away in fear from larger ones. The next morning, my mother and grandmother went to inspect around the barn to see if they could find any clues as to what was out there the night before. They saw human-like footprints all around the barn, just bare feet footprints. Makes me wonder, if it was someone prowling around and playing a prank, then wouldn't one hear the person scream for help to get the dog off him, or yell at the dog to go away? They called the police and conservation officer to the property, but they couldn't come up with an explanation. One last strange occurrence that happened on a farm either on the same road as my grandmother's farm, on Best Road, or on one road next to it. Around the same time the other incidents happened. Sorry for being vague, but it's true. There were two brothers that were new to Canada from Europe somewhere. They had a farm and were raising sheep. One day, another farmer in the area went to check on the brothers, as he or anyone else hadn't heard from them in a while. When the person arrived at the brothers' home, they noticed all the sheep's throats had been torn out, and the brothers were nowhere to be found or heard from again. It was like they just up and left with their furniture and belongings still there. Strange. In the 1950s, my mother was at a dance with a group of friends. It was very popular in town here to go to dances and catch up on all the latest gossip back then. My mother recalled sitting at a table with some other people, and there was this guy who was telling his story about one night he was walking down a rural road in Port Alberni at night. Either his vehicle broke down or whatever. Sorry for being vague. He said he was walking. He could hear someone walking not far behind him. He stopped, turned around, and said something like, "Hello, is anyone there?" It's pitch black out and you can't see a thing. As soon as the man stopped, it stopped. It didn't say a word in reply. He would walk again and then stop. They would stop. It got to the point where the man was getting very nervous and angry, then would turn around and say something, you son of a bitch, do you want to fight? Then, when the man started walking again, he got tripped or pushed over. Then the person following him started wrestling with him. The man said this person was hairy all over. Every time the man would try to get on his feet, he would be tripped again. This thing kept wrestling with him. It had very coarse hair all over its body and head. Every time the man would reach for his face, the thing would lean back or block him from doing that. Eventually the creature picked the man up in his arms and set him down on the ground, then left him alone. The man told the people at my mom's table he was scared shitless. The man said he eventually made it back to the location. The man said he eventually made it to location, a bit roughed up and scared, but okay. Finally, the last time my mother had a strange experience with these creatures was when her and her husband owned a farm at the end of Service Road, which is like a stone's throw from my place, in Port Alberni on the right side of the road. One night while her husband was at work, while she was at home, the kids were in bed sleeping. My mother said she was in the living room watching television. The TV volume was low, as not to wake the kids. My mother said she could hear something walking around their house. She listened closely and said it sounded like it was more than one walking around the house. She also recalled it was talking in a language that didn't make sense. She could see a shadow in the very little space the curtains didn't cover. They kept speaking this gibberish that did not sound like anything she heard before. She said it was too scared. She was too scared to look out to see what it was. Eventually, they went away. They would hear strange calls across the Somas River every now and then, and notice trees broken in half high up where a human couldn't reach. So we actually covered that area in the drone footage. They didn't know what it was and never gave much attention to it. All my mother's and grandmother's experiences came before there was any news about Bigfoot or Sasquatch from the Patterson-Gimlin film in '67. It wasn't until after the Patterson-Gimlin film, and when people started to hear the screams and howls, etc., that my mother and grandmother and other people that lived in rural areas or hunters experienced that they started to make the connection with Sasquatch. Anyhow, that's my story as told to me over the years when I was growing up. Sincerely, Lauren Phillips, Port Alberni, BC. Lauren, you're golden, man. That was gold to me and a lot of people here. Absolutely thankfully did that, man. Thank you so much. Filling in a few little missing puzzle pieces for where I'm living right now, right? Filling in a few pieces. So, for anybody who didn't see, I don't know when that was, last year or the year before, I think it was wintertime. There was no leaves in the bush, could see right through them, and something was pinging, throwing, and bouncing stuff off the back of my quad. I think probably pine cones, because I didn't really notice it too much, because it was, probably had the river would have been high, my ears ring, and I'm focused on you guys, and I didn't really notice it, but you guys did, and sent me a bunch of still shots. And then where else? That one time I had stuff thrown at me, and I kind of freaked out and left, was straight as the crow flies that way, about 2.5 to 3 miles. That was caught on video. What else? You viewers seen something go zipping upriver behind me, shaped like a tic tac or something. Lots of people claim it was a bird. Some people said it wasn't. Whatever is what it is. You've also seen some weird limb movements in the timber behind me. What else? I think that's about it. There is native community around me. That side of the river right over there, wrapping around up there, and over there, there's native community. We all know that the native communities have always, the rural ones have always had these experiences go on. Anyway, enough babbling. What I'd like to do is, I will guarantee you there's a shit pile of people in Port Alberni watching us right now. And if you would, ask around and see who knows what. Or if you know and you've seen, do me a favor and email it to me, alright? I won't share your name, I won't share where you work, I won't share shit. I just want to hear where and when. What? Alright? And there's already There's some, when I remember years ago when I met up with John Bendernagel and he took me for breakfast and he told me that he had just, no, I talked to him on the phone that time. I was on the phone with him and he said he had just gotten home from meeting up with 2 loggers in Port Alberni. And he met them at a McDonald's. They wanted to share with him what they saw, but they didn't want their names mentioned ever. I wonder if they're watching. So anyways, I do know, not only here in this town, but all over the planet, there's a lot of people that just don't want to talk about what they know. But this is the place to do it, and now's the time to do it, alright? So, if you could, if you would, share it. Share my story at howdon.com, alright? But anyway, we do have some very good friends in the world who are sitting on a pile of knowledge, and they are going to share it with me. And just so all of you know, and a lot of you impatient ones, this is my time of year right now. Nothing interrupts it no matter what. So, I will not be traveling to obtain that information for a little while yet, alright? But it's there. It's there, and it's patiently waiting to come together with me to be shared with you. In the meantime, we need everybody to share here. Non-stop. And here's another one. These are all recent. This is a long one. Real long one. This is my experience. Title of this email. Oops. Hello, Steve. This will probably be a long one, so please bear with me. I'll try my best to keep it short. First off, I hate to bore you with my personal past, but it does play a big role to where I'm at concerning this other race of humans. The intense fear and all the experiences that people are having. Note, this is not a pity party, just documenting things from my life that I think are a part of some of the patterns. Looking back, as a child, I suffered with ADHD, dyslexia, OCD, and PTSD. Pretty sure I was or still am on the spectrum. I started getting migraines around 5 years old, and I had a very bad social anxiety. So, needless to say, I did very bad in school. Also, at a young age, I started getting sleep paralysis, and it progressed as I got older. I had very low self-esteem, yet I am a empathic type person. I can feel the emotions and mood of people around me, and I feel the uncontrollable desire to help people that are pushing negative emotions. So, I am a hopeful people pleaser. Another weird trait that I have, I always hear very distant chatter. People having conversations, but I can't never really make out what they are saying. I could tell whether they are male or female, or multiple of them, depending on the time. But it was always worse at night when I'm trying to sleep. So, my bedtime as a child was filled with fear. I was afraid of the dark, afraid of what I'd hear. Heck, I was afraid of everything that wasn't easily explained in my young mind. My parents were real strict. So I learned early not to bother them with something that would just get me into trouble. Another odd thing I could do or feel, this would be hard to put into words. The only way I can explain it is the way TVs were made before we all had flat screens. It didn't matter where I was at, I could always tell when one was turned on. I know that sounds weird, but I would feel a static sensation in the back of my head. It's more of a feeling than a sound. I remember being in a school, and I knew when another classroom was getting to watch something instead of doing work. Also, my dad had narcolepsy. He took a lot of naps. Didn't matter what part of the house I was in, I knew when my dad got up because I could tell when he turned on the TV. But this is just an odd thing I thought I'd had. Now we fast forward to my dating years. Total train wreck waiting to happen. Every relationship I was in were very abusive. The last one could have killed me, but this goes into my mind-speak experience. My boyfriend at the time I had known since I was 11 years old, and I was now in my early 20s. We were just hanging out at his place, and my sister was visiting. Out of the blue, perfectly clear, I heard, "He is manipulating you." This is a male voice, stern and to the point. This really freaked me out. I asked them if they heard it. As I was telling them, the voice came in very loud and very forceful. "He is manipulating you." I just thought I was losing my mind, and it was all in my head, and I ignored it. but it has always been there in the back of my mind. The physical and psychological abuse I endured by this man was so severe and debilitating. He told me multiple times daily that if I left him, he would kill me, and I believed him. It wasn't until 4 years later, and my daughters were 1 and 2, that I was able to escape to another state, until I got temporary custody because I knew I had to protect my kids. I didn't want them to grow up witnessing the abuse and believing that it was okay for a man to hit them. I'm 50 now, happily married for 20 plus years, and my husband has been a great dad to them. That's good news. Our marriage wasn't smooth sailing though. Not only dealing with my learning disabilities, my social anxiety, and sleep paralysis, I also suffered with extreme PTSD from the abuse. I also believe my daughters did as well, because they had to continue to see their dad. I tried fighting it in the courts, but I lost. Only 3 months into the marriage, we found out that we were having twins. Once they were born, our life was chaos. I began to notice that my oldest son was becoming very aggressive. One evening, my oldest was becoming very aggressive. And one evening, she hit her sister very hard, leaving a handprint on her back. I grabbed her, taken her to her room, and said, "What in the world's going on in that head of yours?" She's only 9. She breaks down crying and begins to tell me that she hears multiple voices that tell her to do bad things. When she shuts her eyes, she sees a kind of a symbol, surround in fire. I was literally dumbfounded. I was scared and at a total loss for words. I held her tight and cried with her. I had her draw me what she had seen. At that moment, I knew it was evil. I took her to a pastor that I had much respect for, one for help and to know what it meant. He told me that it was a satanic symbol used for worship. I'm already crying at this point, full of so many questions, and he said, "You can look at this from a medical or a spiritual perspective." I knew it was spiritual and she was under attack. This is when my sleep paralysis was at its worst. I was having 2 to 3 a night. To describe what it was like, it felt like I was being totally consumed by evil. This was a feeling that was even beneath me from where I was laying. Even pushing on the top of my head, I could feel it between my husband and I. I felt like I was being drained spiritually, physically, and emotionally. But back to my daughter. It got so bad at one point I had to put my daughter in I had to put my daughter in hospital for the fear that she would harm herself. She was on so much meds and was expected to still go to school and function normally. I still can't believe this happened. Reliving this right now. Thank God she does not remember much of this. She's a very strong, brave woman now and a mother of her own. Back to sleep paralysis. It wasn't until I got pissed instead of scared that it finally went away. It was like a switch that had flipped. I was so tired of being afraid of everything. Life, men, fists, the dark, the devil. I knew in that moment if I died where I was going, I was madder than mad. I rebuked in the name of Jesus Christ and it was gone. Just like that, gone. And it hasn't come back. But this is what got me into the Word, the true Word of God, not religion. With all that said, maybe Jehovah our Father allows things from the other side to question our reality and give us great fear, hoping that we will turn to Him. I've actually started writing you 3 other times, but then I couldn't keep on the topic because I've always wanted to make sure that I can back up everything I say with scriptures. I want to keep this very simple and basic as I can, but that may be more difficult than I think. We all know that we have been lied to, but it's understanding the why. This will need to break through the cognitive dissonance in a lot of the firm, church-going Christians out there. And I know some still will not hear this at all, and that's okay. This goes all the way back to the garden, well, even further. I'll get to that eventually. First off, Eve didn't eat an apple when she was tempted by Satan. He seduced her. So when she had Cain and Abel, they were twins. One was of the Lord and the other one was of the serpent, Satan's. We all know the story. Cain slew Abel. He was the first murderer. This family line are called the Kenites. This is the seed line of Satan, his children. They are the ones that are in control, doing the work for their Father. This is through the 4 hidden dynasties, which are government, financial, education, and yes, religion. All this has been going on pretty much from the beginning. Satan tried to destroy the seed line that Jesus Christ world comes through by sending the fallen angels to mate with the daughters of Adam, the second Adam. Of course, it failed. So now he wants to do everything he can to deceive God's children. That's all of those who believe in Jesus Christ. I'm going to be blunt now and to the point. Religion is man-made organization, not our fathers, because it causes division. I'm a Christian. Christianity is my reality. I live in full time. All that has happened within this past couple of years is just setting up for what's to come. This is not what people are expecting. We're being pushed on every level and in every area of our life. Everyone is desperately seeking a Savior. The only problem with that is there are two. We're being put in a state of fear. They have to cover all ground. They may be puppets behind the scenes, but remember, God's still in control. We live in a political beast system right now, and it's going to look like we're just about to go to war, and they will get their one world order, but it will fail. The deadly wound. This is when Satan himself comes in as the Antichrist, claiming to be Christ, looking exactly like we think Christ looks like. He comes in with love and peace, fixing all our problems, and here to rapture us away. This is when it goes from a political beast system to a religious beast system. This will be a great apostasy. The great falling away when God's children in an instant go from loving and worshiping Him to worshiping Satan, thinking he's Jesus. Now we have to go back to the beginning. I got to start this off with some scriptures for it to even begin to make sense, because we have been listening to a man in building that they call a church instead of reading the love letter our Father left for us. 2 Peter 3:8, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. Now we go back to Genesis 1:26, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth. 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. I put those scriptures down to point out that this was the 6th day, because in verse 31, the 6th day ended. So God rested on the 7th day. Now we need to stand back and look at this. 2,000 years have passed so far, and we are going into the 8th day. Genesis 2:7. And the Lord God formed man of dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Notice that the first Adam was created, and the second Adam was formed. Looking at man in Hebrew, Gen 1:27, Adam, Gen 2:7, F, Ha, Adham. Based on my studies of the scriptures and the languages and translations, I believe that when Cain was sent away from the garden and he was marked, and he was afraid that if anyone sees him, they would want to kill him. I think that he and his family line is the negative flesh aspect to this life. The positive side is this race. I think it's the spirit of the earth in form, and can have to face God at any time. Either Adam and Eve was deceived, Genesis 3:8. They heard the voice of the Lord God. In my Bible, voice equals sound, crackling, hear footsteps. In 2 Samuel 5:19-24, David inquired of the Lord 19, shall I go up to the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into my hands? 24, and let it be, when thou hearest the sound of a going in the tops of the mulberry trees, that then thou shalt bestir thyself, for then shall the Lord go out before thee to smite the Philistines. There we go, end of email. Alright, well, that's a good chunk of time, right? And that wasn't Sasquatch, Sabe, Bigfoot related. Somebody wanted to be heard and they got heard. And normally I wouldn't share that, but it got me going a long ways in, and I took you guys with me. So there you go. Man, I'm sorry about the shit you went through in your life. I'm glad you made it through it. I'm glad you're here. And I shared your voice. There you go. Take from it what you will or leave it, alright? But don't blow a gasket. Now this next one is the length, is another long one. Should I do it? Should I... There we go. Sun's coming out. Holy. Alright. What do we got? This is titled Ken Sabe. Things still recording? Yep. Alright, here we go. Hello, Steve. Been following your channel for about a year now and appreciate your work. I enjoy hearing the various encounters you share from the listeners, and until recently, I never thought I'd actually be sending one in. I am a recently retired federal employee of the U.S. Forest Service and USDA from a 32-year career that in part allowed me access to some of the most remote locations in the interior western states while conducting forest inventory and analysis, FIA fieldwork. Being in the forest, mostly alone, has been my method of escape since childhood. Until recently, I'd rarely experienced anything really strange in the woods. You can use my name. You recording? That's a shitty thing. I gotta go out and see. Yeah, it's working. Alright, here we go. Alright, here we go. On September 6th, 2023, I was exploring Forest Service Road 2355 along the South Fork of the Skokomish River on the Olympic National Forest. Forest Service Road 2355 is a primitive spur from Forest Service Road 2394 beyond the Brown Creek Campground. It's a very beautiful area. I reached a turnaround point close to the end of the road across from the Camp Harps shelter, about 2.5 miles south of the Wonder Mountain Wilderness area. It's one of the most primitive roads I've found out there. The road forked at the point I decided to turn around, and a 4-inch hemlock sapling had recently fallen across the more traveled direction. I stopped to take a leak before heading back. I walked about 25 feet up the road from the truck before stopping to look up and admire a large snag about 20 feet off the road. I then heard a very distinct but quiet wood knock or snap from exactly where I was standing. My hearing's compromised, and I wasn't sure exactly where it came from, but it was close. It's as if something was aware that I could not hear well and acted accordingly so as not to overly startle me. I immediately said aloud, "That was close," in a normal voice. There were no sticks or twigs at my feet or nearby, and everything was damp from recent rains. I believe I immediately started transitioning into instinct, or fight or flight mode, and felt confused but not afraid. First, I clicked my tongue loudly, twice, I think, in an effort to communicate with whatever made the sound, or get it to repeat. I may have heard another quieter knock, but I'm not sure. The knock most resembled the warning a hornet, carpenter bee, or yellowjacket might give when you approach their nest too closely. They will fly right into and bump you before going in attack mode. It's nothing to really be afraid of if you're paying attention and back up immediately. You may have experienced these warnings yourself. I retraced my steps back to the truck, still without any feelings of fear or danger. I'm not sure why, but I felt compelled to look down the whole time. I believe I left instinct mode once I got back to the truck because I remember thinking, maybe I'll just relieve myself right here near the truck. The thought came to mind, do you really want to do this? I decided to leave and start driving back down the steep section of Road 2355. It was after a couple hundred feet that my hair started standing on end. At that time, my GPS screen was saying my truck was moving south, actually in the thick forest between Forest Service Road 2355 and 2394 and the South Fork Skokomish River, which is impossible. I tried zooming in and out of the screen to see if the GPS would correct itself and put me back on the road, but it continued to show that my truck was going through the woods exactly between the road and the river. I stopped to step out of the vehicle where the road leveled out, and when looking back up the road, I experienced a dark feeling, like when a movie director focuses the camera down a dark road and quickly focuses the camera lens forward for a frightening effect. I needed to keep leaving the area. I continued driving on road 2355/2394, and after about a mile, a squirrel crossed the road about 200 yards ahead of me, left to right. It was only at that point the GPS immediately realigned itself to show that I was driving on the road. Further down, the words Ken, K-I-N, Ken Sabe, kept echoing in my mind. I have no idea what that could mean. My hair continued to stand on end until I got to the paved section of Forest Service Road 23. I still get goosebumps when I recall the overall experience. Road 2355/2394 is closed each year near the Brown Creek Campground after October 1 for wildlife habitat management. I suspect this warning occurred to coincide with the upcoming closure, but I'm not comfortable yet returning to the location alone, even after the road opens in the spring. There were several parts of this experience that sound like others you've shared. I hope some of my description will sound familiar and help encourage others. I'm now much closer to being convinced there is something out there that, like many other things in the wild, provides adequate warning if you're paying attention. Thanks for taking time to share if you can. Brian Ingalls. Okay, Brian. 32 years. So there you go, you guys. Here's somebody who worked in the forest for 32 years, never seen one. But he doesn't eliminate the fact that they exist just because, well, I haven't seen one. I've been in the forest for 32 years. Right? Like so many people I know. And a lot of people have that attitude. Well, I've been hunting my life. I've never seen one, so. Right. But anyways, Brian, how did you come across this channel? I wonder. And through your travels and your co-workers, have you ever heard from anyone else about seeing these beings? And if you have, maybe you could urge them to come forward, or you could share what you learned from them, if you would. And email us back with more. But anyways, appreciate that. Appreciate the location and the whole 9 yards. Appreciate it. Alright, here's one more short one with an odd attachment, it looks like. And I'm going to get going after this. My husband's Bigfoot revenge. My name is Simone. I'm married to a wonderful man, but one who does what most people would never do. 2012, while we were crossing Sabine River in East Texas, probably meant East Texas, my husband saw a Bigfoot jump over the embankment. The creature, okay, there's some typos in here, so I'm pretty sure you meant the creature was about 9 feet tall and had all black hair, shaggy hair all over its body. He had red eyes and a muscular build. I was reading a magazine on the passenger side, and in a new Dodge, I saw something out of the corner of my eye, but my husband got a full view of the creature. He tried to swerve to scare the Bigfoot off the bridge or away over from the highway. As we passed, my husband sped up and took off. The creature chases for the entire span of the bridge that we pulled away from him. The revenge part. Number 1, he developed a critical kidney failure and was put on dialysis. He now has to live with an amputated right toe and a bleeding disorder. As a doctor and have no reason for it and cannot find out because of this condition. Lots of typos. I feel certain that this has to do with the Bigfoot sightings. Can you help me understand this, please? Always a fan, Simone. P.S. My husband, also part of a group of hunters who shot Bigfoot in the leg, and all of them had fallen into diseases and conditions of kidney failure. Help me understand this. I'm sending you pictures of proof of what's going on with my husband. Alright, so she sent me his prescription and some other things. You didn't have to do that. Alright, so what I gather is kind of broken language. It's either broken language or broken here. The typos made it a little confusing, but we got through it. So, what I think this email shortens up to is the dude seen one of these things crossing the bridge, swerved to chase it. He chased him back, and previously he had shot one of these things with a bunch of his buddies. And she thinks that the guys involved in the shooting and him have also come to physical illnesses, and she thinks it's all due to the harassing they threw down in their past towards these beings. That's what I'm getting out of it. So, Simone, if you're still here with us, watching this, and if you could, please, if your husband would, or some of his friends, or all of them, get him to share with us what they did, what happened when they shot this being, alright? What with, where, when, what happened, what did it do, what was it doing before they decided to shoot at it, and let us know. Get him to share his story with us, would you? Maybe, please, possibly, right? Because a lot of us are going to be very curious about what happened that day. And I don't know, I haven't heard of anyone. I don't think we have a pattern here of people falling to physical illness after contact with these beings. But right now we do have a potential popping up with Edgar and his colleague. That's a little bit of a brow raiser, because we have two men who worked with nuclear energy for all their lives, very intelligent people, used all the precautions. They said there's no frickin' way they came in contact with radiation through work, but they both came in, potentially both physically came in physical contact with these beings, and they both have the same cancer right now. What's up with that? I don't know. But anyway, there you go. More shared. And as you're watching this, I am in the woods. And I am, while you're watching this, trying to call up one of these monster frickin' bull elk that I've been aware of for a couple years. I hope I'm doing it. It's exciting. And maybe at the end of this video, I'll share the video of another monster bull that was on my SD card that I missed, because when you check the SD cards in your phone with the SD card reader, you look at a little screen, you sift through them, sift through them, sift through them. The detail is very vague. So I always check my SD cards when I get home, too, on the big screen, and sure enough, this great big bull, and it's the same bull, I'm confident, that I videotaped last year with my handheld looking down from the timber. Pretty sure that's him. So that's exciting that he's alive. And there is, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6 different bulls on the side of that mountain the day before I was there, and I could get one of you. So hopefully, as you're watching this, I've got these guys coming in screaming at me and I'm videotaping. I hope. There you go. And I'll be sharing more, non-stop. And the people will be sharing more non-stop too. It just doesn't stop. Once you get the truth flowing, right? Especially the hard truths. Once you get the hard truths flowing, they don't stop. If anything, they increase. Share my story at howtohunt.com. That's where you get it shared, word for word, typos included. We'll be back later on.